Hello tankers. Today what I want to go over is what I call the plus signs. These are the plus signs that are beside the crew members. What they are XP that you've earned for a crew member that can be applied to a perk. Most of us know that they can be designated right away. For example, if it's at even 0% but that plus sign exists, you can choose any perk that you want to get started on, like camouflage or repairs. But I use the plus signs in a different method, especially when I'm at the lower tiers and I'm looking forward to the next tank. The next little bit you see me playing with here is using the saved skill or perk. I don't know what you call them, but I call them plus signs. When I get a plus sign beside a crew member, I don't necessarily train it for a perk right away. In fact, I save them a lot of times to be able to use them instead of using gold to train that crew member to 100% for the next tank, TD, or artillery, whatever it is that I'm training next. They'll dive into that perk or that saved perks amount once you train them at 90% or even 80%, 70%, whatever you train them at for silver. They'll use up part of that plus sign, or sometimes they'll use it all. Sometimes they won't be 100%, sometimes they'll be over 100%. In this case, we saw that I was able to train 2 crew members for the stirrer Emil and still have the plus signs remain there, even though they're already trained at 100% using only silver for the next vehicle up the line. This is a method that I have posted on many forums and tried to convince people to use, especially newer players or even experienced players who seem to have trouble going up the lines and often train a crew member who might have a perk. Let's say they have 15% or even 30% camo, but if it's your gunner and they're training up to the next tank for silver, that's training at 80%, sometimes 90%, sometimes it's even worse than that. I would rather have my gunner and my commander at 100%. So what I advocate is staying with a tank once it's fully upgraded and you're happy. You may not be totally happy with it. If you're absolutely unhappy with it, then maybe it's time to change. But if it's something that you're making work, keep it the extra length of time to be able to get those plus signs beside your crew members. Most of the time, 40% to 60%. When you hold your mouse over the plus sign and or the training box that you could choose for each crew member, you'll see what percentage they're at into that plus sign. And I've had them go, 40% to 60% into that plus sign. That will convert over to them training up with only using silver to 100% skill level in their next tank. Whereas I have seen it when I've changed the crew from maybe a light tank to a heavy tank, or a heavy tank to a light tank, or some non-linear change that is going to demand a lot more from the crew. The crew would have been at 50% level or some other level if you just threw them in the tank. They might use all of that, so they might use 40, 50, 60% of that plus sign and still not be at 100% skill level, but they'll keep their perks, so that's good, and they're going to be higher up than they would have been any other way other than using gold. So it's valuable in many circumstances. You got to be a little careful with it, but you certainly don't want to rely on it making a crew member to 100% if the plus sign is only into 10 or 15% of the next perk. Now what I'm seeing with this is if that perk is maybe their 3rd perk, 4th perk, that there's a lot more XP that went into even creating that. So while these crew members were being trained for the next tank up, they didn't use all of it. They didn't even get near using all of it, just because there was so much XP saved up in that perk. And so if and when I do buy the stirrer Emil, it will be with a 100% crew, at least in the commander and the gunner, which are, let's face it, I think the most important. I hope that this video explained a little bit more about the plus signs and how they can be used to your advantage if you plan ahead and don't need a specific perk at a specific time. If you're newer to World of Tanks, or even just thought that this video was a good initial walkthrough of the options we have with the plus signs, give it a thumbs up and or pass it along to clanmates and or friends playing World of Tanks. I'll try to make a second video going over specific perks that you may want instead of the plus sign when you convert over, and also another consideration that I've found. Thank you.